He saw me as his enemy, his nemesis, the one he loathed most. And every single day, I played my part in his twisted narrative. Until one day, I simply couldn't anymore. I was diagnosed with cancer. When I got home, the house was drenched in shadows. I set my bag down, removed my shoes, and felt along the wall in search of the light switch. Just as my fingers brushed it, a plate came flying at me. I dodged just in time. The light snapped on. Thomas stood on the stairs, blank-faced. "You remember where home is?" I said nothing. Just smiled and walked toward him. I wrapped my arms around him. "Still playing the bitter housewife, Thomas?" He smelled faintly of the floral cologne I picked out for him, soft and gentle. But it didn't warm him. His gaze stayed cold, filled with disdain. Under the glow of the crystal pendant light, fragments of light scattered across the room like shards. And even with that brightness, the air in the living room was frigid. The man sitting beside me emitted not a shred of warmth. I rested a tablet on my lap, flipping through images. "For our wedding, how about this one? The hem's cut in a mermaid shape. Isn't it stunning? It flows like light across water. I love this one too. The veil is covered in tiny stars, just like that night you took me to." He cut me off with a scoff. His gaze rose to meet mine, dark and unwavering. "Do we even have a past?" I wanted to say yes, we had so many memories, so much love. But he looked at me like I was nothing more than a stain on his life. He lifted my chin and kissed the corner of my mouth. His voice was cold, smooth, laced with dangerous charm. "Be good. Hand over the meds." Thomas still listened to me. Because I had something he needed. If he had ever read the Internal Bureau reports from years ago, he would have seen his own name listed under commendations and under injury reports. Thomas had developed a drug addiction during his time undercover. And when the mission ended, he was diagnosed with paranoid psychosis. Delusional disorder, they called it. He viewed almost everyone as a threat, including me. Me, the one he'd once sworn to protect with his life. That gentle, loving man was gone, dragged into a personal hell. Now, he looked at me like I was colder than death. In the dim bedroom light, I tugged his collar. I straddled him, but he remained still, indifferent. Even with the marks of addiction on him, he looked like some distant god, untouchable. His lips curved faintly, radiant as ever. I leaned down to kiss him, but in a swift motion, he flipped me underneath. He searched the pocket of my shirt and found the syringe. Without hesitation, he injected it into his arm. To him, that syringe was no different from a hit of drugs. But it wasn't. It was a specially formulated sedative, tailored for his condition. Recovery was a slow process. He couldn't quit cold turkey. And at that moment, I finally understood why he hated me. Because in his mind, I wasn't the one he trusted. I was the one who got him hooked. The one who fed him just enough each day, acting like I cared. Just a villain in his story. I dreamed of the past. A Christmas Eve, years ago, when Thomas was still undercover. I visited him, weaving through the crowd, catching glances of him behind a newspaper. He leaned against the railing, hands in his pockets, relaxed and unbothered. Thomas had always been handsome, just one smirk could make hearts race. Girls kept sneaking looks at him. Right in front of me, he whistled at them. I kicked his foot. He chuckled, voice low. "Babe, I've got to stay in character." The street's grime clung to him, but his eyes were still clear. Christmas music floated around us. He lifted his head with a teasing smile. 3 years, and another 3, and another. A line from Infernal Affairs, our favorite film. He met my gaze through the glass reflection. "When can I finally marry you?" I lowered my paper and brushed past him. "When your mission's over, then I'm yours." The mission ended. But I never became his. The next morning, I woke up to an empty space beside me. No trace of him left. Of course I knew. He couldn't even stand to lie next to me. I went downstairs, searching the house. He was gone. Hands shaking, I called our friends. No one had seen him. My vision blurred from the throbbing pain in my skull. But the fear of losing him, that was worse. I tried to text him. Even considered asking old bureau contacts to find him. My heart pounded so violently it felt like fire. Then I saw a pair of white shoes. "What are you doing?" His voice was calm, cool. Thomas was still Thomas, but not the one I used to know. I stood and hugged him. I didn't know why, but I loved holding him, like I could leave some warmth behind. Even though he never hugged me back. "I thought you left, Thomas." He gently pushed me off. I was watering the plants. I smiled faintly, brushing hair behind my ear. "What do you want for dinner?" "I'll cook." "Cut it out. You won't even let me leave this place." He grabbed a book from the table and went upstairs. I kept him in because I feared the cartel might come after him. But the more I tried to protect him, the more he became a caged bird. And the more he resented me for it. I went to the hospital for a full-body checkup. The headaches had worsened. I never used to fear death. But after Thomas, I was terrified. Because if I died, no one would be left to care for him. At least while I lived, I could stay with him in his hell. Thomas lived in hell. His psychiatrist once told me. Thomas pushed me away because deep down, he believed he no longer deserved me. He didn't choose the addiction. The drug lord forced him to try it. A cop, turned addict. That was his punishment. And I couldn't pull him out. But I could stay. I bought groceries on the way home, and a bouquet of baby's breath. Back then, when he was undercover, he used to send me flowers. He couldn't send them to my real address, so he mailed them to our secret place. His handwriting was awful, but the notes were beautiful. If I could write well, I'd give you the moon in words. The sunset today wasn't even 1% as pretty as you. The breeze by the lake whispered to me, it said I miss you. Nina, seriously, I miss you so much. I could still see it, Thomas hunched in some grimy hideout, grinning like an idiot as he slipped those little notes into flowers. Even home didn't feel safe anymore. Luxury cars had been parked outside for days. When I saw our front door open, my heart dropped. My vision spun as pain struck me. I clung to the frame. A few men in suits stood in the doorway. A woman sat on the couch. Heather, even if you're police, this is still trespassing. I set the bouquet down and looked at her. She smiled lazily. So is unlawful confinement. And you're not a cop anymore, Nina. She meant keeping Thomas inside. Heather, the police chief's daughter. And my rival in love. She loved him too. I'm taking Thomas. She inspected her manicured nails. No. I steadied myself, glaring. Why not? The Bureau agrees. You're no longer capable of managing his condition. He hasn't improved. But I have the best doctors, the best care. Only with me. I'm his lover. I cut her off. She finally looked at me, sneering beneath her perfect makeup. Says who? He never married you. Thomas didn't choose you. He said he would. But now he hates you. Look. She drew a knife and pressed it to my throat. Then turned me toward the stairs. Thomas was there, slowly coming down. See, she said. Even if I killed you right now, he wouldn't flinch. Her words sliced deeper than the blade. She was saying, your love is worthless. I'd nearly carved my soul out for him. But even with a knife at my throat, he didn't blink. So maybe I hadn't done enough. This was the promise Thomas and I made, we would never give up on each other. No matter what. I slowly reached out and gripped the blade. Heather hadn't truly meant to hurt me, her hand faltered, just for a moment. I won't let you take Thomas away. A heavy silence followed, then she smiled. Then let's do it fairly, she said. Let Thomas decide. Whoever he chooses, goes with him. What do you say? Thomas wasn't an object. He wasn't something to be won in a fight. After they left, I sat alone on the sofa. The living room light was far too dim. I should really replace the bulbs one day. I kept my gaze down until a shadow loomed over me. He stood there, voice emotionless. They weren't trespassing. I let them in. When she held that knife to your neck, I didn't feel a thing. Thomas always knew how to hit where it hurt most. I looked up and caught my own panic mirrored in the emptiness of his eyes. Softly, I asked, so, you want to go with her? He said nothing. Of course. For Thomas, going with Heather would just mean trading one cage for another. What he couldn't see was, he was the cage. A prison of shadows, of guilt, of pain. All I ever wanted was to make him smile again. But it had become so rare, his smiles. I once put on that ridiculous bear headpiece we bought together, hoping to make him laugh. Instead, he frowned. What the hell are you wearing? We bought it together, remember? A long time ago. But you forgot, Thomas. The light filtered through the steam in the kitchen, hazy and warm. For a moment, it felt like I'd gone back 7 years. Back to a time before the missions and the drugs, when we strolled through the night market, laughing. You said I looked stupid in that headpiece. I kicked you. You stopped laughing, then kissed me. You've forgotten so much. I watched you now, standing by the stove as tofu simmered gently. I smiled. Smile for me, Thomas. Your eyes were calm. Your words, ice cold. If you died in front of me, I'd smile. It was happening again. Thomas hated me. But it wasn't consistent. Sometimes he was indifferent. Other times, like now, he looked ready to strangle me. Lately, he'd been turning in early. After logging his meds and symptoms, it was always past midnight when I finished. He hated bright lights while sleeping, so I'd tiptoe around in the dark, hand brushing the walls. My thoughts kept circling him. His emotional swings were worsening. It meant his condition was deteriorating. When it got this bad, the hallucinations would start again. Imaginary threats. Fractured memories. Nightmares he couldn't wake from. I couldn't risk giving him more meds, not with his history. But at least, the new psychiatrist was coming tomorrow. I was still deep in thought when someone yanked me into their arms. My eyes had adjusted to the dark. It wasn't a burglar, it was Thomas. His breath was warm against my ear. "Why aren't you asleep?" I kept my tone gentle, soothing. I reached for his hand, he slapped mine away. Then he grabbed my wrist, painfully tight, and yanked me into his chest. His thumb scraped against my neck, rough and unrelenting. "Why did you inject me with drugs?" His voice pushed down on me like a weight. "Why did you inject me with drugs?" He meant it as a threat. But did he even realize how lost he sounded? Back then, to earn the cartel's trust, Thomas stood in those dark, damp basements. Shooting up over and over, vomiting between doses, becoming the perfect addict. Convincing, even to monsters. He survived that hell. But a part of him never left it. His grip tightened until I could hardly breathe. His eyes were bloodshot. "Did you do it just to keep me here? You're selfish. You disgust me." That's what he believed. That I was the one who hooked him. That I gave him the drugs. My lungs screamed for air. I coughed, forcing the words out. "Cough, I didn't. I wanted to tell you, Thomas. It wasn't me. It never was. And it's over now. But you never let me explain. Even when I tried, your emotions exploded. The psychologist said I couldn't provoke you anymore. You needed time. You needed space. Thomas. And then, he shoved me. My head hit something, hard. Maybe the corner of the cabinet. A blinding pain tore through me. I reached back. My fingers came away wet and warm. Blood. I stood, staggering, and switched on the lamp. Red shimmered down my hand, vivid and fresh. I pressed it to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. He stood in front of me, silent, staring at the injury he'd just caused. I met his gaze and gave a bitter smile. "I'm hurt now, too. Does that make you feel any better, Thomas? If you're stuck in hell, I'll stand there with you. Would that make it easier for you?" I got my head bandaged at the hospital. While I was there, I picked up my scan results. The doctor went over everything, then handed me the report. I walked into the corridor, surrounded by people, but my mind was blank. When I looked down, my palms were slick with sweat. I'd been gripping the report too tightly. I always thought my job helped me face death better than most. But to me, death had always meant one thing: losing Thomas. I feared he'd slip during a mission. Feared he wouldn't come back. Feared the drug lords would crash him out, and that he'd obey. To me, death always meant him leaving me. But now, I was the one leaving his world. It felt like a ticking clock had been implanted inside my chest. I drove home, parked, unlocked the door. And froze. Heather's arm was around Thomas's shoulders. And he wasn't pulling away. "Heather, you're really getting comfortable, huh?" I stormed over and shoved them apart. Every string, pulled tight enough, will eventually snap. I always thought I was calm. But sometimes, rage is calm. It simmers. Until it breaks. Heather barely blinked, adjusting a strand of her curled hair. "Same as last time, Thomas let me in." She leaned close and whispered in my ear. "Nina, you forgot, he's not the man who used to shield you anymore. If you want someone to blame, blame your luck. We're back at square one. But this time? My odds are better." Back in the academy, she was the queen bee, beautiful, bold, always chasing Thomas. And Thomas? Every single time, he'd pull me behind him. "Watch your words. She's my wife. I love Nina. I'd give her my life, my heart, my kidneys." My vision blurred again. I looked at him, silent, distant. Heather said he let her in. He wouldn't even say no to her anymore. And something inside me caught fire. "Why, Thomas? Why am I the villain in your eyes? Why do you hate me so much? I'm dying, Thomas. Did you know that? I'm scared too. I hurt too. You once told me I was the one you loved most. Then why do you look at me like I'm nothing now? Why push me away? Why do you want me gone so badly?" I grabbed his collar and shoved him toward the door. "Go. Go with Heather. Don't come back. I don't care anymore." It was the first time I ever yelled at him, since he returned shattered from that last operation. All these years, no matter how he hurt me, I never raised my voice. For a moment, he looked shaken. I kicked them both out. Slammed the door. Then leaned against it, chest heaving. In my pocket, the scan report crumpled beneath my clenched fist. My nails dug into my palm as pain throbbed in my skull. "Thomas, I won't care anymore. Even if you beg me to, I won't." I sniffed, met his eyes, and said softly, "When I die, bury my things at the foot of Mount Qingcheng, with the others. Turn my ashes into fireworks and send me into the sky." Maybe I'd gotten too serious about planning my own funeral. Lucas's expression darkened. "Don't say things like that, Nina. If you really die, how am I supposed to face Thomas? What if he gets his memories back one day? Won't it crush him with guilt? You've got to hang on. Just hold on until that heartless bastard remembers you. And then? Smack him across the head, he deserves it. A crack of thunder split the sky. I forced a smile, not sure whether I wanted to laugh or cry. Last night, I collapsed the moment I stepped through the front door. The pain in my head was so sharp, I couldn't move. I lay there for 3 hours, motionless. Even in my dreams, I was calling out Thomas's name. Calling until my voice gave out. But Thomas never came back. The rain just kept pouring. Then my phone vibrated. It was Heather. Her voice was rushed, panicked. I sprang up, searching for an umbrella. Lucas asked what was happening. I ended the call and stared blankly at him. Thomas is missing. Tell me, Lucas, why do I still want to risk everything to find him? Thomas suffers from severe psychogenic paranoia. I'm terrified he'll walk into traffic, thinking a truck is a passing cloud. That he'll see a gun pointed at him and mistake it for an ice cream cone. The world he sees isn't the same as ours. That's why I kept him inside. That's why I tried so hard to protect him. Heather and I mobilized our teams, combing through everything within a 100-mile radius of her house. Back when I interned with the police, I spent most of my time tracking missing persons. But I never realized, until now, how gut-wrenching it is to search for someone you love. At first, I ran through the storm with an umbrella. Later, I tossed it aside. It was slowing me down. My heart pounded wildly. I scanned every shadow, every sign, every alley. I'd promised myself I wouldn't care anymore. So what was I doing? Just once more, I told myself. Just one last time, let me care. I thought I saw someone familiar and bolted toward them. But I ran straight into a turning bicycle. Are you trying to die? The rider shouted. I crashed onto the wet pavement, coughing up rainwater. Pain tore through my skin where it scraped the curb. Then the dizziness returned. My vision blurred. I clutched my forehead. I tried to stand, once, twice, 3 times, but couldn't get up. I sprawled on the sidewalk, soaked, trembling. The cyclist saw me struggling and pedaling away. Not my fault. You ran the red light. For a moment, I thought I saw someone kneel beside me, hands on his knees, teasing. Geez, how'd you end up like this, dummy? It was a memory. Back when Thomas and I were still partners. He'd nailed a suspect with a beer bottle from 100 meters away, then strolled over to mock me. I blinked. The illusion vanished. The rain didn't stop. I staggered to my feet and kept walking. Hours had passed. Still no sign of him. Earlier, I could spot Heather's people from time to time. But now, there was no one. I worried they'd stopped looking. I pulled out my phone to call her. But the signal didn't go through. Drenched and shivering, I turned back toward the search's starting point. I was definitely coming down with something. When I rolled up my sleeve, I saw blood crusted around my wrist. My head throbbed like it might explode. I decided to head to Heather's base. Maybe get some hot water. But before I even got there, I heard voices. She's still out there looking for him like an idiot, huh? Let her. Does she seriously not realize she's the one nobody wants around? They'd found Thomas. And no one told me. I walked into the courtyard to see Heather gently patting Thomas dry with a towel. Everyone turned to look at me, muddy, soaked, and completely out of place. Apparently, Thomas didn't hate Heather the way he hated me. I looked pathetic. Rain-drenched and desperate, searching for hours while they all watched from the warmth. The courtyard fell silent. I stood there, filthy, trembling. And I remembered, the first time Thomas was rescued, I looked exactly like this. That day, I'd biked through a downpour because of a sudden call. Fell more than once on the way. When he opened his eyes, I was the first thing he saw. Sopping wet, collapsing into his arms. Maybe that's when he started resenting me. I stumbled forward and stopped beneath the dim courtyard light. I had so many things I wanted to say. But when I opened my mouth, none of it seemed to matter anymore. So I just reached up, stood on my toes, and gently patted his head. Silly Thomas. Let's not meet again in the next life. He stood frozen, unmoving. A memory resurfacing, sharp and uninvited. She had once come home and hugged him tight. And he had shoved her so hard that her head slammed into the nightstand, split open on the corner. He remembered the blood, how it stained everything, how it pierced into his vision like a blade. But even then, he hadn't helped her up. Hadn't softened his voice. Not even a little. He had finally driven her away. Just like he thought he wanted. Nina dreamt again, lying in her hospital bed. No matter what happened, she and Thomas would meet once a year. Sometimes to exchange intel. But really, it was because they were in love, and love needs a reason, any excuse, to meet again. That year, their rendezvous was on a subway train. Morning rush hour. The train packed, the world blurring past. Amid the crowd, someone suddenly wrapped their arms around her. 3 squeezes on her wrist, their signal. Thomas stood behind her and gave a small cough. He hadn't smoked before. But now, his body carried that bitter, ashen scent. "The next deal's at Sunshine Bar," he murmured. The car rocked gently. Nina grabbed his wrist, her voice low. "You used again?" She had seen the faint pinpricks on his arm. As the train plunged into a tunnel, flashing advertisements swept across their faces. He didn't answer right away. Then, he gave a small, reluctant nod. He gently brushed her hand away and stepped off the train with the crowd. "Nina! Nina, wake up! Stay with us!" Someone was running alongside her hospital bed. Someone was calling her name. Her eyes fluttered open, but the world had gone hazy. The doctor had warned her the day before, the tumor was pressing on her optic nerve. She was blind now. But her lips still moved. She could still speak, barely. Lucas leaned close, his ear near her mouth. She whispered, "That day, I shouldn't have asked him. He must have thought I was disgusted by him. But, even if it's him, even if he's an addict, so what?" The wheels beneath her bed clattered against the floor as they rushed her to surgery. Possibly for the last time. And across town, Heather was stringing star-shaped lights along the porch. The warm air made everything feel drowsy and far away. The golden shimmer danced across Thomas's eyes. He was waiting for the new year. Fireworks exploded overhead. Today was supposed to be his final therapy session. But the doctor didn't show. Thomas sat in the chair, alone. Heather had said she decorated the house for New Year's Eve. It was supposed to feel festive. But no one came. Not the doctor. Not Heather. He sat in that silence for a long time. Maybe he didn't need therapy anymore. Some memories had already started creeping back, bit by bit, in his dreams. Ripping him open. Stitching him back together. Over and over. He walked over to the mirror. Formed a finger gun. Pointed it at his neck. That final mission. His boss had been a madman, violent, unpredictable. But Thomas still had to get intel from him. The mission was nearing its end. The last link was him. As long as he didn't break cover that night, they'd win. But then, his boss gave him an order: crash out. Right now. In front of the buyers. Crash out. Meaning, inject a massive dose of heroin straight into the carotid artery. That was the location. That was the test. There was no other way. He had to do it. If he didn't, the agents hidden nearby would all die. The trap they'd spent years laying would collapse. The drugs would flood the streets that very night. No one knew what would happen after crashing out. Seizure. Madness. Death. Or worse. Permanent addiction. He'd stared down his boss. Laughed bitterly. And without hesitation. Plunged the needle into his own neck. In that moment, as the drug hit and his mind splintered, a single thought echoed: I have to push her away. Because the man who just crashed out? The addict. The wreck. The version of himself drowning in filth. Wasn't worthy of her anymore. The New Year's bell rang out. The sound jolted him. He gasped for air, staring at his reflection. It felt like he'd just crawled through centuries of darkness. Outside, laughter and bells filled the air. Neon flickered on the wet pavement. His chest suddenly ached with something unfamiliar life. He bolted from the house. People passed him in waves. He ran like something inside him had caught fire. He hadn't written to her since the addiction started. Hadn't visited their secret base. Which meant, he'd never seen her final letter. Their mailbox, by the old elementary school, was still there. Dusty. Rusted. Long forgotten. No key. He shook it hard. By luck or force, the door snapped open. Wilted petals tumbled out. A single yellow card fell to the ground. He picked it up. Brushed away the dust. The ink was already smudging. His fingers trembled. A sharp ache built in his chest. He stood frozen, dazed. In the distance, a bird called out, sharp and strange. They say that's the sound of mourning. Someone was gone. The funeral hall. He knelt before her urn, placing white flowers gently at its base. People came to mourn, colleagues from the force. Now that his memories had returned, he recognized many faces. Outside the hall, someone waved at him. It was Lucas, an old friend, a fellow agent. He followed. Lucas led him down a series of quiet, winding paths. And then, without warning, Lucas punched him in the face. You bastard. That punch? That's from Nina. This kick? Also, from Nina. Fuck you. You have any idea how much pain she was in when she died? She was calling your name until the end, you worthless asshole. Where the hell were you? Lucas hit him over and over. Years of grief, rage, regret, everything poured out at once. Thomas didn't fight back. He slumped against the wall, letting it all land. The soft orange light of sunset filtered through the stairwell. A crow called somewhere above. He stared blankly, expression hollow. Lucas grabbed him by the collar, voice low and harsh. Don't even think about dying. Death's too easy. You don't get to escape that way. You're going to stay right here, and rot. Yeah. Hell on earth. He hadn't kicked the drugs, not yet. And now, he had a new addiction, a memory. One so vivid, so unbearable, it carved itself into his flesh. When Lucas left, Thomas stayed behind. He sat in the stairwell for a long time. Then, slowly, he stood. The mourners had gone. He wandered the streets, alone. To anyone else, he looked normal, just another guy on his phone. It rang. The doctor from the rehab center. Don't forget your next appointment. Got it, he said, flatly. He pocketed the phone. Reached for a cigarette. But couldn't find one. A bicycle bell rang. Teenagers rushed by. Hey, you almost hit that guy. Chill, dummy. One boy reached out, ruffled the girl's hair. The laughter faded. Thomas suddenly stopped walking. A puppy tugged forward on its leash, dragging its startled owner. An old man selling rice cakes resumed his shouts. But on the side of the street, one man broke down. Thomas stood there. And cried. He cried like a child. No one knew why. A single leaf drifted down from the tree above. And in that moment, he remembered the last words she ever wrote to him. Thomas, no matter what you become, I'll still love you.